Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I am Bryson Carver, very excited to be with you on this Friday, and what a jam-packed show we have. I mean, this is a dream show, right? NFL predictions, we know that later in the show. I've gotten off to a little bit of a rocky start in terms of if I were a betting man. Not a great start at all in that regard. Only one win for a segment that I hold very near and dear to my heart. I've got to improve and get better. Bryson's Bleak bet, upset of the week. I feel great about my upset of the week this week. Stay tuned for that at the end of the show, the top of the next hour at 7 p.m. Eastern. We've got a lot to discuss. Caitlin Clark, why her rookie season actually came ridiculously close to what I thought she would be coming into the season. Getting to that about 45 minutes. In 15 minutes, or rather to 10 or 12 or so, going to discuss Shohei Ohtani putting together not only the greatest game in baseball history, and yes, I'm willing to call it that, but also he is the best baseball player in the history of the game. Detail that in about 10 to 12 minutes. Tommy Christopher, who covers the New York Jets for SB Nation, he'll be stopping by the show at about 6:20 p.m. Eastern time. Very excited to get his thoughts on the Jets win last night, which I'm about to touch on. What else do you have? Oh, the Volview. Big game for Tennessee this weekend. Tomorrow night, College Game Day is going to be there in Norman, Oklahoma. Josh Heupel's homecoming. Tennessee Volunteers, Oklahoma Sooners in Norman. Game day's there. Can't wait to discuss it. And I'll talk about on the Volview, as we always do, at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time on a Friday. Very excited about that. My man Alfred at Parsar Jr., big Jets fan, is in the comments. Y'all know he does the graphics for the show. Love Alfred. He says, show Rodgers some respect. Well, listen, Alfred was at the game last night. He saw something that I saw, what America saw, and that is an outstanding-looking Aaron Rodgers. So let's get to that. But first, so if you're a Jets fan watching that game last night, here's what we know. If you're a Jets fan, you have seen over the last 25 plus years, heck, if you want to go back even further, let's just say 60 years, going back to or 50 plus years, going back to the days of Broadway Joe Namath. You've seen some bad quarterback play. Like really bad quarterback play. Like it's so bad my camera just shook right there. It's terrible. You saw Zach Wilson last year. You've seen Mark Sanchez at the end wasn't very good. You tried Darnold. That didn't work. You tried Geno Smith. This is just in recent years. You've tried a lot of different quarterbacks over the course of the last half century. Aaron Rodgers is the best you've had in some time, and that goes without saying. Now, folks that know this show know that I have been extremely pessimistic, if you want to call it that, if you want to call it, down on the Jets, whatever. I do not believe in the Jets this season. Last night didn't necessarily change a lot of that. What last night did do, and for the record, I picked the Patriots to win. Dead wrong. I thought it would be a time of possession game. I thought New England would win the time of possession battle like 35-25. Yeah. How about the Jets winning 40-20 in the time of possession battle? New England did nothing offensively. How about 139 yards of total offense for the New England Patriots? Absolutely abysmal. One of the worst offensive performances that I've seen. We could talk about New England in the future, but last night was Aaron Rodgers' night. If we could show all stats provided by our friends at StatMuse, all graphics provided by my man Alfred Parsar Jr., big Jets fan. I bet he was excited to put together this graphic. Let's show you what Aaron Rodgers did last night. 281 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 77% completion, and 118.9 passer rating. You see down there, completion percentage and passer rating. It's the best completion percentage Aaron has had in 19 games, and the best passer rating he's had in 12 games. If you go back to his last healthy season, his last year in Green Bay in 2022, when he was 2 years younger, not off an Achilles surgery, it was the only, if memory serves me correct, the only 100-yard pass game he had that season. He may have had one against Tampa Bay earlier, if I remember correctly, but part of Aaron's claim to fame has been two things. A, unbelievable passer rating. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks ever in that regard, and for a number of reasons, of course. And number two, and to me, this has to feel great if you're a Jets fan, because it genuinely shocked me watching it last night. Aaron looks like he's still pretty mobile. I know, it's kind of shocking. Off an Achilles surgery, 40 going on 41 years old in December, and I thought he moved really well last night. I mean, the Jets' offensive line, which is demonstrably better than it was a year ago. That's one thing I said I gave the Jets props on, adding Tyron Smith, adding Moses, drafting the kid in the first round rather than taking Brock Bowers, who's been a beast with the Raiders. Props to him. I love Brock Bowers, but that was the smart pick for the Jets to protect their Hall of Fame quarterback. Jets O-line's good. I thought it was pretty good throughout the course of the night. And then there was times where I'm like, oh, New England's getting some pressure. There was a couple plays where some of those interior Patriots guys were able to get, inside pressure on Rodgers, and he looked excellent. He was moving to his right, throwing the football. He's moving to his left. A couple times he tucked and ran the football, which was really shocking to me. I'm not sure Aaron Rodgers had a single rushing yard through the first 2 games of the season. And we know Aaron isn't ever going to be mistaken for like Lamar Jackson or Michael Vick in terms of mobility. Who is? But that was good to see for his sake, for Jets fans' sake. And again, I'm so skeptical about this team because so many of the issues that I have seen going back to last year, going back really through the first 2 games this year is I'm not terribly sure how well coached this team is. Matter of fact, I tend to lean it being a poor coach team. I think Hackett is still, I will stand on this, a terrible offensive coordinator. Again, the Jets last night, my issue last night, what I did wrong is overestimate New England. Never again, rest of the season, my bad. I put too much stock into a game where they beat the Bengals in Cincinnati when we all know the Bengals always start slow at home. At home to start seasons. The Bengals are never good. They always start 0-2. So props to New England for getting that win, but the Bengals always do that. And New England is, outside of Ramondre Stevenson, who did nothing last night, mostly because he didn't get a ton of opportunities, it's a virtually talentless roster. I mean, they don't have any big play threats down the field. Brissett is what he is. He's a bridge guy and nothing more than that. The offensive line is absolutely atrocious. The defense plays hard. It's a Patriots defense. Christian Gonzalez, we know they've got some guys on that side. And Jerome Mayo's a defensive coach. But they're one of the 3 worst rosters in the National Football League, bar none. I don't think that's remotely debatable. And so whether the Jets are able to, whether this is a look into what the Jets are going to be in the future, you can feel that way if you're a Jets fan or a Jets optimist. Have at it. I don't. I still think that this is a 7-win team. I think the fact that, again, if you look at the Jets' schedule, that was their easiest game of the year. New England on a short week at home. Now, one thing you'll have to say, and one thing you got to give Aaron Rodgers credit for, which I will, is the fact that Aaron this is his 3rd game that he's played, and I think the course of like 11 days or something. Like if you look, again, the first game for the Jets was played, 11 days. So from September 9th to the 19th, 11 days, Aaron's played 3 games. And last night's the most mobile he's looked. So that's got to be a good look, good news if you're a Jets fan. He can move. He was accurate. We knew he was accurate. We knew he could throw a beautiful football. That was never a question with Aaron Rodgers. Could he move well? Well, that's the check. My question still remains with the Jets. And they got a game at home against Denver next week. My guess is they're favored in that game. This says they're favored. They should be favored. But Minnesota's a well-coached team, and that game's played in London, by the way. Then you got Buffalo, who's been the big brother in the AFC for some time now, really since 2020. At Pittsburgh, we know how great my Steelers defense is. At New England, we just saw what they did to the Patriots. Texans, we know how great they are. The Cardinals are a tough team at home. Indianapolis can score points. Seattle, we know how good they are, especially that defense. Miami, we'll see with Tua's back. Jacksonville, I think, will still be viable at the end of the year. Rams, Bills, Dolphins. Like in almost every one of those games, the other team will have a coaching advantage. Last night, that it was virtually a draw because, A, we don't really have that much from Jerome Mayo, and B, and I'll get into this with Tommy Christopher when he comes on the show, but Robert Saleh has been at this point been reduced to awkward moments with his quarterback. I mean, that's what he is. And again, folks say, well, what about the quarterbacks that he had prior to Aaron? That's why the Jets weren't good. Well, then why the Steelers kept getting to the playoffs post Big Ben retirement with, clusters of no-name quarterbacks. The Browns did the same thing last year with Watson and Joe Flacco and a bunch of other guys. So again, I still think this is a 7-8-ish win team. I did like to see the fact that Aaron was very mobile last night, but make no mistake about it, that was the easiest game on their schedule. I didn't think it'd be coming into the game, full transparency. But after watching that, it was like, oh yeah, New England is kind of what I thought they were going to be coming into this year, which is hard to watch. Young coach, very, very, and I want to emphasize, very little talent on both sides of the ball, particularly offensively, and kind of just trying to find their way. This is going to be a season. We saw Drake May at the end of that game get some runway. Almost became the first quarterback to throw a touchdown. That could have been, a fun little, stat in terms of the competition of the rookies. But all in all, listen, I'm not going to say I was blown away by the Jets defense because what were they going up against? I was blown away by Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that is Obviously, to take last season out because he played 4 snaps. That's the best game I've seen him play in 2 years minimum. He was, I mean, if not for a little miscommunication with Garrett Wilson on his final throw of the game, he'd have thrown for over 300 yards. And I've been saying that, like, hey, Aaron hasn't won a playoff game in 4 years. He hasn't thrown for 300 yards in 3 years. He almost ended that streak last night. I'm sure he will at some point this season. He's too great of a player, but listen, he looked absolutely fantastic last night. And again, the thing with Aaron that I have never one time questioned even for a second, guy throws a beautiful football. I mean, it just looks effortless. What you see from Mahomes, if we're talking about younger players, what you see from Caleb, I mean, Caleb himself said it. They got that from Aaron. So Aaron, I will give him a ton of props. Like, I've been critical of him in terms of leadership, lack of playoff success and whatnot. What I would give Aaron a ton of credit on, give to throw the football and kind of help inspire another generation or another couple generations of young quarterbacks throwing the football themselves. And last night you got a pretty good viewing of that. So shout out to Aaron Rodgers. I got nothing bad to say about him. He was excellent last night. Check the comments before we move on to Shohei. Let's see what we got. My man EJ Savage, check out my man EJ Savage, Boys in the Zone on the Grid Network. He says his arm is still very live. Barely looks like he needs to try and throw 30-yard bullets. Oh, yeah, he can still sling it. Oh, he was throwing some dots. Some of those back shoulder throws. If he and Garrett Wilson, because you saw a couple plays, Aaron only had 8 incompletions on 35 attempts. He was sometimes a little off on some of those throws to Garrett Wilson. That's just a matter of repetition. You have to imagine they'll get that in line. Again, still not a lot of motion with this Jets offense. I don't anticipate that's going to change anytime soon. I still think they're not a hard offense to game plan for. If you have talent, which the Patriots, of course, do not. But there you go. Bricktop is asking if YouTube is working. Mine's working fine. I hope yours is working. Alfred, Jets will be in the playoffs and give Saleh a break. Any coach that was forced to start Zach Wilson for 3 years would have a losing record. In fairness, I would say this, Alfred. How much better is Kenny Pickett than Zach Wilson? I mean, the guy was, trust me, I watched him in Pittsburgh. Yikes. He was bad. And he said Jets offense was notoriously poor the last couple of years. Listen, the Jets offense was not going to be bad this year. I never said that they were going to be like bottom 10 in the league, but I saw them as kind of like a middle of the road. Garrett Wilson's excellent. Breece Hall, when healthy, is excellent. I don't trust Mike Williams to be healthy. I will say this. And again, maybe this was just Patriots being bad. That Tyler Conklin kid looked pretty good, the tight end. I mean, listen, Aaron hasn't had a whole lot of star tight ends. He hasn't had a whole lot of like superstar wide receivers other than like Devontae Adams, guys like that. I did see this, and then we'll move to Shohei because this is unbelievable. Last night, this is pretty crazy, folks. First time Aaron Rodgers has thrown a touchdown pass to a receiver who was drafted in the first round. And that was obviously Garrett Wilson when he threw the touchdown pass to him, I believe, in the second half. Like, that's hard to wrap your brain. Like, I remember that was a criticism for the Packers for you. Like, man, get him help. Draft him a receiver in the first round. Like, he made Jordy Nelson and Cobb and guys like that work, but that was impressive on his part. So, pretty shocking stat there. I wonder, it seemed like Tom Brady didn't work with a ton of first-round rookies either. I know he had N'Keal Harry his last year in Foxborough, but either way, good win for the Jets, and very impressed by what I saw by Aaron Rodgers. Let's move to Shohei Ohtani. It's hard to wrap your brain around how great this guy is. So prior to last night, I believe Shohei was one of either 5 or 6 guys to have a 40-40 season on his resume. 40 home runs, 40 steals. Well, last night, he had, I'm going to go and say it, and Joe Davis, as you're about to hear in this clip, said it, the greatest single offensive game in the history of Major League Baseball. Before we discuss any of that and really what it means for Shohei, let's see the home run where he became the first guy in the history, long history, over 150 years of Major League Baseball to become a 50-50 guy. Here we go, Joe Davis.
On a 1-2, Ohtani sends one in the air. The other way, back it goes, gone! One-of-a-kind player, one-of-a-kind season. Shohei Ohtani starts the 50-50 club.
First of all, great call by Joe Davis, but that was, it's so funny about Shohei. Like, the thing with baseball that makes it so different from other sports. It is a game, and I love baseball, by the way, but it is a game that is more married to its past more than football and basketball. Basketball is, I mean, some folks would like you to believe it's like Jordan era, then on from that. But what it is more than anything is here and now. A lot of basketball is about flair, style. We hold championships against you. Football, here and now, in the moment, week to week to week. Baseball, I mean, listen, if you listen to a baseball podcast, you can't get through 30 minutes of it without folks mentioning Mickey Mantle. With all due respect to the great Mickey Mantle, but that's kind of the identity of Major League Baseball. So I'm about to say something that's probably going to be controversial in some baseball circles, but I believe it to my core. And that's that Shohei Ohtani is the best baseball player to ever play in the history of the game. I'm willing to say that. First of all, let's look at what he did last night because it's pretty unbelievable. Here's the graphic Alfred put together. 6 for 6, 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, 2 stolen bases. And of course, he started Major League Baseball's 50-50 club. Now, you can say it's against the Marlins, and that last home run came, I believe, against a position player. Whatever. 6 for 6 in a Major League Baseball game is freakish. And Shohei Ohtani, we could show you what he's done this season. It defies logic. First in runs, first in extra base hits, first in homers, first in RBIs, first in OPS, first in slugging percentage, 377 total bases first, 176 hits, that's second, 51 stolen bases, that is also second place for Shohei Ohtani. The guy is nothing short of a freak. And oh, by the way, the last time he had a fully healthy season pitching, he had a 2.33 ERA. Respect to Willie Mays, Barry Bonds. If you want to talk strictly hitters, Ted Williams, Tony Gwynn. Throw any of the greatest players in Major League history. By the way, I'm not saying Shohei Ohtani is the GOAT. To me, that's a whole different discussion. Greatest player ever. You're going to talk about Barry Bonds. You're going to talk about Willie Mays. You're going to talk about guys like that. In terms of what it's why I often argue, yes, the accomplishments, yes, the longevity, all of which I argue for this man. I think LeBron's the greatest player ever in the history of basketball because of all the things that he can do at an elite level. Shohei Ohtani, last healthy season, he's an ace. He's the second best base stealer in the sport. And he, by the way, is the second best power hitter in the game to Aaron Judge. Basically, if you took the second best, some guys rotate, some teams rotation, but the second best guy in a rotation on a great team, say like the Philadelphia Phillies or like the Padres, great rotations. Take the second best guy there, more like 90 to 95% of Aaron Judge, then take like 90 to 95% of Ellie De La Cruz. And I present to you Shohei Ohtani. It defies logic. It doesn't make sense. There's no other way to put it. This guy is the best baseball player in the history of the game. Nobody can do more at an elite level. And again, it's so funny. It reminds me of this 50-50 thing. And by the way, you got folks now saying we got a week and a half left in the regular season, a few series left. People are like, hey, could he get 60-60? We got, you count your hand the number of people who done 40-40, much less 60-60. It reminds me a little bit, not to bring everything back to my Warriors, but when Steph Curry was when he hit I think 286 3-pointers in the 2015 season. I remember it very well. And folks were like, man, that's unbelievable. And that was the record at the time. Like, man, I wonder if he hits 300. And Steph said, no, I'm not going to hit 300. I'm going to hit 402 3-pointers the next season and absolutely obliterate the record. That's a little bit what this accomplishment reminds me of Shohei. The greatest single game ever, arguably one of the greatest single seasons in the history of Major League Baseball. I mean, and by the way, Angels, what, you didn't get to the playoffs with that guy and Mike Trout in his prime? You disband the franchise, move them out of move them to some obscure city in Canada. I mean, that's unacceptable on the part of the LA Angels or the Anaheim Angels, whatever you want to call them. The guy is, there's certain athletes you cannot replicate. You cannot find a second Shohei Ohtani. The closest thing we got to find a Shohei, let's go back a century and talk to Babe Ruth. That's it. You'll have guys, I think, in the future that are two-way guys who can pitch and hit. Not like this. Unbelievable what we're seeing. On a stacked Dodgers roster, he looks different than everybody else. Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, he looks different than everybody else. So shout out to Shohei Ohtani. All right, take a quick 1-minute break, and then we'll be back with Tommy Christopher right now on Carving It Up Live. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Joining us now is a writer rather, for SB Nation. He writes for Gang Green Nation on SB Nation for the Jets. He also covers them through the Jets X Factor. He also reports for FAU football. You can see him as well on Fox 5 at New York. Would you please give a warm welcome to, on Carving Up Live, to Tommy. Oh, if we can get him on the show, here we go. There he is. Tommy Christopher is joining Carving Up Live. Tommy, I appreciate you having you on, my man. How you doing? Oh, you're muted, I think. I think you're muted.
I was.
There we go. There we go.
Man. I appreciate you taking the time out to put me on the show. I really do appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, first of all, you're obviously a Jets guy. What was your thoughts on last night's game with the Jets winning 24-3 over the Patriots? Because there were a lot of things I talked about with Aaron Rodgers. I liked the mobility that I saw from him. I like the fact that this is the first time we've seen, certainly post-Achilles surgery, where moving to his right, moving to his left outside the pocket, he looked as good as he's looked in quite some time. What was your thoughts on last night and on Aaron specifically?
Yeah, I was kind of shocked. I've been waiting for a long time to see him start running with the ball, like to see where he'd be able to finally trust his Achilles. We kind of saw that last night. Now the Jets have been, I guess they want to lower his chances of mistakes and going more short to intermediate this season, which is what the numbers have kind of suggested. But his arm is still there. His arm's still powerful. Some of the throws on the run you don't really see from a guy at age 40. He looked good, man. I had little negative to take away from that game with the Jets.
Yeah, there is very little negative to take from that game. And again, that's I showed Aaron's stat line earlier. It's the best game he's had in well over 10 games, going back to obviously his last healthy season in Green Bay. What's kind of I know you're a Jets guy. What's kind of your thoughts on the ceiling for the Jets? Where do you think the absolute best you can hope for from the Jets? What's the ceiling and what's the floor for this team? Because it kind of ranges all over the place. Like I'm a guy who's been skeptical of this team, but there are folks that are saying, hey, maybe they could shock folks and go to the AFC title game. What's kind of where where you look at the Jets in terms of this season?
A lot. I mean, I know it was the Patriots. I know the Patriots were starting Jacoby Brissett, so Jets fans kind of shouldn't get too ahead of themselves with that game. It's a game that the team should have won. I still see them between like a 10-12 win team. They should make the playoffs. There's a real chance though that they could stumble across the line and maybe only get 8-9 wins. That would be probably the worst case scenario for Jet fans, and that would lead to a lot of heads rolling down on the chopping block. But I do have them in the playoffs. I don't know if I have them as the AFC East Division winner yet, but I think they get one of the wild card seeds.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair, I guess, sort of assessment of where they're at. Now, it's one of the things that I have been very critical of this team of is the fact that I think they should have replaced Nathaniel Hackett after last season. I understand, obviously, the tight relationship that he has with Aaron Rodgers going back to Green Bay. We understand that. But virtually everywhere these win, if you look at his record as the OC in Buffalo, the Jags, if you take out 2017, his disastrous stint with the Denver Broncos, and then last year, obviously, with albeit a very limited quarterback room. The fact this year, I don't see a ton of motion. Up until last night, I saw virtually zero creativity in their first 15 plays. And I mean, you know as well as anybody, like the first 15 plays of the game, those are all scripted. You go through through those throughout the week. Thoughts on Hackett, the game he called last night? Again, like you said, it is the Patriots. It's a very limited football team. Did you like what you saw from the Jets getting off to the hot start that they got to and able to move the ball like they were?
I do like it. I do have some of the concerns with the lack of movement in the offense, as you alluded to. I think that it's also not a great look when Aaron Rodgers is making a lot of changes at the line of scrimmage, meaning that he doesn't agree with the play call that Hackett has thrown at his way. That usually doesn't bode well. I know he, at his age 40 season, four-time NFL MVP, all that, he has the luxury of being able to check out of those things, which is a good thing. But at the same time, you want an offensive coordinator that is more than just the quarterback's friend. You want a guy who can actually be able to coach the rest of the team as well. And although they did play well, I do have genuine concerns about Nathaniel Hackett as a coach himself, because he hasn't proven himself, to be quite frank.
You hit on something that I don't know, maybe I never thought about this before, the way you phrased it with Aaron being 40, being able to, to get in and out of plays at the line of scrimmage as well as anybody, maybe better than anybody in the game today. Do you think, because again, we know him and Hackett are close personally, do you think that, as well as the fact that maybe he feels like because the calls are I won't say so bad, but maybe not exactly what the Jets need in that particular situation, that he can essentially be the de facto offensive coordinator in sort of like how Peyton Manning was with Adam Gase, another former Jets coach back in Denver. Do you think has something to do with Aaron Rodgers? Because we know a lot of folks like Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb was there last year because of Aaron. A lot of folks are Jets today or still keeping their jobs because of him. Do you think it's a little bit of, okay, I can control what's going on here and essentially have more of a say here than where I would have most places? What are your thoughts on that theory I have?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think it's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing because you want an offensive coordinator to be more than just a figurehead. You want him to be, a part of the team and having a game plan that can successfully take advantage of any weaknesses on the defense. I don't think that Hackett, I don't like to tear guys down, but I just don't think Hackett has that ability to do so, at least in an offensive coordinator role. Maybe in a different role, he might be more useful, I guess would be the word I would say. But it's definitely, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think he's there because I think Rodgers is there because he has that leeway to do it in a place where I don't think he would necessarily in another team.
I mean, I think that's why he and McCarthy, and to a certain degree, LaFleur kind of, I don't want to say we're on the best terms, but it didn't necessarily connect there at the end of his tenure in Green Bay with those two coaching stints. And again, there was a book by Ian O'Connor. I don't know if you've read it last night or yet, but Out of the Darkness, the Mystery of Aaron Rodgers. It kind of talks about his relationship with McCarthy and just the fundamental disagreements that he had with McCarthy in terms of his offensive philosophy. The viral moment last night, speaking of Aaron Rodgers and coaches, came between he and Robert Saleh. We can show you the clip, show the audience the clip right here. So this is after the Jets score a touchdown. I believe they go up 14-0 at this point. And it looks like Saleh's going in for a hug, and Aaron's kind of like, it looks like he's doing the little chest shove, which we'll show the soundbite in just a moment what he said after the game. But a very ominous look by Aaron at Saleh. It didn't look like he was joking. Aaron can be sometimes a little bit of a passive aggressive guy, but in a joking sense in some instances. Matter of fact, before I get your reaction, let's show what Aaron said after the game.
He's not a big hugger usually, so I don't know he was going for the hug. He likes to do the two-hand chest push as well. So, but he talks a lot about two-score leads. So I just kind of gave him a push and said, two-score lead. That's what happened.
So if you read his lips, it looks like he said two-score lead or something like that. I'm not sure what was going on. Your takeaway on that, are folks making too much of that? Because that to me feels like a little bit of a, it didn't bother me, by the way, but Aaron's saying, hey, it's the Patriots. It's early in the game. Let's slower roll a little bit. What was your takeaway on that thing that's got everybody up in arms?
Yeah, I don't think it's huge, but my takeaway is kind of the same as yours. I think it's justified because Saleh is a type of guy who he lives in the moment, and sometimes that can be a good thing. But as a head coach, you kind of can't. He has a tendency to get way overhyped way too early in a game. He's known to make some costly mistakes, whether it's with game management or otherwise. So I think it was more of Rodgers just kind of keeping him in check, that there's still a lot of game left to play. I think that happened in the second quarter, first quarter perhaps. It was still very early in the game, so I think it was justified. Do I think it was a huge ordeal that social media has kind of made it out to play? No, I don't.
Yeah, and I think it's, there's a funny saying, everything is something, nothing is everything, right? I don't think it means it's the end of the world. They won a divisional game in blowout fashion on a short week. So sky's not exactly falling right now for the Jets with a 2-1 record with that little interaction. Listen, the fact that Aaron was very, kind of jokey about it after the game, I think does me. And Saleh was kind of the same way. It was a little bit of an awkward moment, more so by Saleh than with Aaron. He's used to these sort of interactions, but I did think it was at the very least notable. And you wonder if, again, sort of the connection with Aaron and a Hackett, which goes back years, going back to Green Bay, if that's something, his ability to, for lack of a better term, kind of control Hackett, if that doesn't sort of apply with him and Saleh, whatever the case may be. Now, a big reason folks were optimistic about the Jets this year and last year prior to Aaron tearing the Achilles was the defense. Now, the first two games, they were one of the worst teams in football in terms of stopping the run. Last night, New England, which the Patriots didn't do much of anything offensively, but New England, 15 carries for 78 yards. Again, they were playing from behind for most of the game, and their O-line was terrible. But thoughts on the Jets defense? Because again, they've been dealing with some injuries. CJ Mosley didn't play last night. Jermaine Johnson dealing with injuries. Thoughts on the Jets defense? Do you think this is the first three games are a sign that they may be taking a step back, or this is just a little bit of a slow start and trying to find their footing? What's your thoughts on the Jets defense?
I think it's a little bit of both. Jeff Ulbrich and Robert Saleh, their defense is predicated on like having a four-man rush. Obviously, last night they didn't do that. They blitzed a lot of people last night, which goes completely against their defensive philosophy. I think that was planned though, just given the way that the defense has performed thus far. CJ Mosley was out. They had some guys nicked up on the back end. So I think that was more of a game plan kind of thing. I think we might see something similar against Denver this week. But at the end of the day, Saleh doesn't want to have to utilize, his linebackers or his secondary to blitz the quarterback. He wants his front guys to be able to do that themselves. And it'll be a big question after that, once they play the Minnesota Vikings and they play, the Buffalo Bills and they play teams with a good team. That's when that question kind of will start to arise has this team kind of taken a step back? Because when Sauce Gardner had to be the man against Tennessee, he didn't play that great. The defense hasn't been able to stop the run that great. And I think they kind of got bailed out that Ramondre Stevenson, I think he broke his finger or something like that on the face mask call where his hand got stuck in the face mask. So I think they got bailed out a little bit there too. It's not great. It's a work in progress. I don't know if they'll be like the top 5 kind of defense that people are used to, but I think they can stay within the top 15 range, top 10.
Well, I think they'll need to be in, and let me know what your thoughts are on this, but I think they'll need to be in that top 10 range in order to accomplish what, you and a lot of folks associated with the Jets are hoping, like 10 wins to 11 wins, 12 wins, is because I do think, and this sort of leads me into my next question, I don't really trust the depth of the wide receiver core. Garrett Wilson, we know, is fantastic, and when he gets the ball in his hands, he can do some really special things. But Mike Williams has an injury history. Tyler Conklin, I like what I saw from him, the tight end for the Jets. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the norm for him. Listen, Aaron's brought in a lot. I mean, obviously, Alan Lazard caught Aaron's first touchdown pass at MetLife. We know Aaron has a history of bringing in former Packers in the organization. Is a Devontae Adams trade on the table? Is it at least on the board?
I don't want to say no. I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. I think if the Raiders start to nosedive in terms of how they're playing, then it becomes something that could be an option. But for the Raiders, I think they're 1-1 right now as well. If they end up winning this next game and go on a little run, there's no way they're moving Devontae. I would love for them to, but it's 50-50. A lot's predicated on how well the Raiders do as well as the Jets.
Final question. So Aaron was, before last season, before obviously the Achilles injury, again, it was a completely different human than what we've seen his last few years in Green Bay. He was very upbeat, optimistic. Looked like he actually had more like color in his face. He looked very, excited to be a part of the New York Jets organization. And he talked about extensively, he was pretty adamant. He took the Green Bay thing year to year, and he was 90% of retirement, all of that. And he was adamant he wants to play multiple years with the Jets. Do you think there's a chance, or what the scale of 1 to 10? 1 is he likely retires, 10 is he absolutely comes back. Scale of 1 to 10, what's the chance that you think he comes back and plays another year? Or do you think that will be almost entirely predicated on what happens this season?
I think it'll be predicated on what happens this season. I lean more towards him not returning than him returning. Even if they win the Super Bowl, I think he rides out on that high the same way, Peyton Manning did. If they don't win the Super Bowl, I don't see much of a reason for him to want to come back, especially if they miss the playoffs. If they miss the playoffs, I would be completely shocked if he wants to come back. I think it would have to be like a deep playoff run where they're in the AFC Championship game and they lose on like a heartbreaker or something like that for him to want to play again.
That's a good point. And I'm kind of thinking the same thing is, you win the Super Bowl, like that's like the perfect time to step away, step out when you're on top of the world. I mean, Peyton Manning did, like you mentioned, Jerome Bettis, Ray Lewis, a lot of guys have done that. But on the other hand, if you feel like you're that close, you're like, man, one more year, if we could maybe add a couple pieces here and there, improving the margins, maybe we could, get to the mountaintop. Again, if you miss the playoffs, you feel like you're a ways away and Aaron's not getting any younger. Listen, you make some great points. By the way, tell us where you can find you on Twitter, on SB Nation, everywhere else. Tell us where we can find your work. Tommy Christopher covering the New York Jets.
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter at ThomasCP_NFL. I cover the Jets, Gangrene Nation, Jets X Factor, and I cover a lot of college football at my company, the League Winners.
Appreciate you coming on, Tommy. Hopefully we can do it again, my man. Have a good one.
Yeah, thank you, buddy.
Yes, sir. Tommy Christopher covers the Jets for SB Nation, does a great job over there. Listen, he makes some really good points. Like, I think it's a lot of this Jets season, a lot of what happens with Aaron Rodgers, because I feel like maybe now is not the best time to necessarily bring up the Aaron Rodgers retirement thing, especially of the fact that he had his best game in a long time, going back to his last year in Green Bay, obviously, it's kind of like that middle. It's like, I joke the worst place to be in sports is in the middle. And I feel like the most if the worst case scenario, which I predicted for the Jets this year, 7-8 wins, missing the playoffs, under 500, occurs, why would Aaron come back? Like, it will kind of just blow up his face. If he wins the Super Bowl, hey, get it, go out on top. You shoot up the list in terms of the all-time quarterbacks. Now Aaron is almost, with the 4 MVPs, 2 Super Bowls with 2 different teams, almost guaranteed to be in the top 5 at that point with his individual accomplishments. Despite some of the playoff failures, he essentially had the same resume as Peyton Manning, right? 2 Super Bowls, 2 different teams, 1 later in his career, multiple league MVPs. And so, but if it's somewhere in the middle, if it's like Tommy mentioned, if it's a AFC Championship loss, if it's, heck, I even think if the Jets make the playoffs, it feels like almost a guarantee Aaron Rodgers is coming back next year. So that's going to be really interesting. And again, the fact that, listen, the Jets didn't take a quarterback during the, no, they did. I'm sorry. They actually did. They took Jordan Travis. I don't think they think Jordan Travis is necessarily going to be the long-term answer with the Jets, but really, first of all, really good insight by Tommy. And again, hopefully we can have him on the show at some point, but he brings up some good points. I mean, it's a very interesting year for the Jets. And like he made a great point, I don't think we're really going to know definitively over the course of a long stretch of the season until about 2 weeks from now. Because they played Denver at home, extended rest, like they should beat the Denver Broncos. Denver's in a rebuild. Sean Payton's I think a much better coach than Robert Saleh. But at the end of the day, you also have to consider the fact that, look, it's the Jets have a significant talent advantage. Aaron Rodgers, I like Bo Nix with Sean Payton specifically, but Aaron's no question better than Bo Nix today. So, I mean, we'll see. But it's again, big time season for the New York Jets. All right. Moving on from the G-Men. That's the Giants. My bad. Let's move on to college football. There's a lot of big games this weekend. You could talk about Utah, Oklahoma State. You could talk about USC and Michigan in the big house. There's some big games in college football this weekend, but none so, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, bigger than Tennessee and Oklahoma. College game day is going to be here. It's going to be a whole spectacle. So, feels like a good time on a Friday, a little after 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, to get into the Vol View. So, the Vol View begins. A special edition, a big game for Tennessee. Vol View begins right now.
In Tennessee.
Indeed it is. It is football time in Tennessee, and the biggest game of this young Tennessee season kicks off tomorrow night in Norman, Oklahoma, with the 6th-ranked Tennessee Volunteers, the highest ranked since obviously in 2022, when Tennessee at one point was the #1 team in America. They take on the 15th-ranked Oklahoma Sooners. Tennessee on the road is a 7-point favorite. So this has been a fantastic week for Tennessee football. So you go back to last week against Kent State, and I said here in the Vol View a week ago at this time is Tennessee's favor by almost 50, as hard as that is to believe, against Kent State at home. Kent State's winless. Tennessee's one of the 10 best teams in America. The only thing that I could learn from my Tennessee Volunteers in that spot, and it was a minor thing because it's a team you have a very significant talent advantage over, but big game in Oklahoma next week. SEC, season opener. Josh Heupel coming home. Is there a sense of look ahead? Is there a spot where the Tennessee Vols maybe have a rough first quarter? It's kind of close, and then they blow the doors off them from there. How about against Kent State, folks? Here's what happens the first drives for the Tennessee Volunteers. Force 3 and out. Touchdown. 3 plays for Kent State. Tennessee forces a safety. Then they score another touchdown. 3 and out for Kent State. Touchdown, Tennessee. 3 and out for Kent State. Touchdown. Tennessee then all inside kicks. Touchdown. 3 and out. Touchdown for Tennessee. force a punt, touchdown Tennessee, force another punt, touchdown Tennessee. They force another punt, and then another touchdown for Tennessee, to the point, folks, in the first half alone, the Tennessee Volunteers have a lead of 65-0. For context, I had Tennessee scoring 59 for the game. Now, they called out the dogs in the second half, played a lot of the third and fourth string guys. Listen, 100 was very much on the board. Josh Heupel, he's been a guy who's run the score up in his time in college football. He's not going to go crazy or anything like that. So they call the dogs off the second half. Tennessee ends up winning the game 71-0. And again, something that is really important for Tennessee and really important for folks to recognize is the fact that the Vols have the number one scoring offense in college football. Well, that's not that surprising given what they did 2 years ago with a healthy offense, given how great Nico that's 4 straight weeks in a row. Iamaleava, I will get it. Iamaleava, who's the best quarterback in college football. I'm here to tell you that today, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, along with Miller Moss and some other guys. Josh Heupel, brilliant head coach offensively, and we know that some of the receiving talent that Tennessee has. That's not surprising that they're the number one scoring offense in the country. Here's what is surprising. Tennessee has the number 3 scoring defense in the country. The Tennessee Vols, folks, in 3 games this season, have given up a grand total of 13 points. So thus far, teams against Tennessee are scoring on average a little more than 4 points a game. Meanwhile, Tennessee in their games has scored 69, 51, 71. That 51, by the way, was scored against NC State, who at the time was a ranked team at the ACC. So Oklahoma, what do we know about them? Well, we know they're coached by Brent Venables. They have a 3-0 record. Venables obviously was a defensive coordinator at Clemson, won some national championships with Dabo Swinney, Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence. We know what Clemson did in that run they had there. He's been at Oklahoma for a few years now. The Sooners won 51-3 over Temple, only 16-12 over, at times, a frisky Houston team, and then took care of Tulane at home last week, 34-19. This is a big test for Oklahoma. Again, this is not the offensive juggernaut Sooners that we came to know and love under Lincoln Riley, but it also is not the dreadful defenses that we came to hate under Lincoln Riley, or really under Alex Grinch, if we're going to be honest, but that's beside the point. Here's the thing. Listen, Oklahoma's got NFL guys. We understand what they have, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. They've got Jackson Arnold at quarterback, talented young kid. The fact of the matter is this: Tennessee has a gigantic advantage at the quarterback position with Nico Iamaleava. That was better. Also to mention, Dylan Sampson, as great as Nico has been, has arguably been the best player in Tennessee's offense. Folks, Dylan Sampson, this season for Tennessee, in a backfield that is loaded with guys like Deshaun Bishop, who had 120 yards on the ground last week against Kent State. Dylan Sampson, how's 45 carries for 357 yards and 9 touchdowns go? 9 touchdowns, 3 games. Is that good? Is the fact that he's averaging like basically 10 yards a carry. Is that good? Well, that the kid is a special player. Dylan Sampson running the football. The fact that Josh Heupel, and for a number of some of Tennessee's assistant coaches, this is a homecoming of sorts, coming back to Oklahoma. The fact that Josh Heupel won a national championship as the quarterback of the Oklahoma Sooners in the early 21st century. This is a guy who knows offense. This is a guy who coaches offense at the highest level. This is a guy who coaches a college offense that, frankly put, would not work at the next level with the wideouts with Tennessee, that they run a lot of screen passes, the run game with Dylan Sampson. We understand that. Tennessee is out for blood. Tennessee is out to prove, okay, we're the 6th best team in the country according to the AP poll. You see Georgia last week get out of Lexington with a 1-point win over Kentucky. You see Texas, number 1 team in America right now. Arch Manning, what a debut for him, carrying on the Manning legacy. But he is the backup to Quinn Ewers. Now, Arch Manning's got a very bright future ahead, and that Arch Manning-Nico Iamaleava rivalry is going to be special for years to come. But for right now, the Texas has their backup quarterback in the lineup. Oh, Alabama, uber talented in offense and defense. They're going to be a problem. Alabama's actually a little bit better than I thought they'd be this season. Kalen DeBoer is a great coach. But you look up and down. Ohio State hasn't played anybody. We don't really know. We know Ohio State has a stacked roster. What will they do against the big dogs? Because we saw against Michigan, struggled at times. Tennessee's out to prove they are one of the 4 best teams in college football. While that doesn't hold quite the same weight that it did a year ago, where it was only 4 playoff teams, now it's 12. If you're in the top 4, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you get an automatic bye to the second round of the college football playoff. And call me crazy, that seems big. So, Tennessee's got an excellent defense coached by Tim Banks. Tennessee has an excellent offense coached by Josh Heupel. Tennessee offensively has the best quarterback in college football in Nico Iamaleava. Defensively, they have the best defensive player, certainly the most talented defensive player in the country in pass rusher, James Pierce, who's going to get to Jackson Arnold all night long. Listen, that Oklahoma crowd is going to be electric, ready to go. College game day is going to be there. Lee Corso's going to pick Tennessee. I know he is. I know Coach Corso. He's going to put that smoky head on. It's going to be a great atmosphere in Norman, but everybody knows. Come on now. The dominance of Tennessee's offense. Defensively, against a big boy opponent on the opposite side of the ball, they'll show up, they'll show out, they'll force not 1, not 2, 3 turnovers on the night, and the Tennessee Volunteers will soundly beat the Oklahoma Sooners 38-20 in Norman. 38-20 Vols. Of course they cover the 7 points right there. Tennessee wins this one 38-20 over Oklahoma. They get their first SEC win of the year. They start 4-0, and they get a little rest. They get a little bye week before their next matchup. Who does Tennessee play next after Oklahoma? Tennessee's got at Arkansas 2 weeks from now at Arkansas. So listen, this is a big-time stretch for the Vols. They're going to take care of business, go to Norman. First big statement road SEC win of the year. And Josh Heupel gets the homecoming that he absolutely deserves, and as a W at his alma mater, Oklahoma. So Tennessee, put that score up again one more time. I just need to see that one more time. I need to visualize it. Tennessee 38, Oklahoma 20. And that is it for this week's edition of the Vol View. Let's go Vols, baby.
Football time in Tennessee.
Whew, it's a big game for the Big Orange, but they're going to take care of business, 38-20 over Oklahoma. What did Luke Combs say? Ain't no loving. I'm not going to sing. Luke does a shout out to the great Luke Combs, but he does a much better job at singing that than I do. WNBA topic. Of course, we're talking Caitlin Clark. So entering this season, earlier this year in May, when the WNBA season began, only a few weeks after the draft, or really about a month after the draft. Point is, the Indiana Fever coming out the worst season in the WNBA last year. They draft Caitlin Clark with the first pick after drafting Leah Boston with the first pick the year prior to that. And Caitlin Clark is going to win Rookie of the Year in a landslide. Should win it unanimously. Not sure if she will, but she should. Let's look at, here's the thing. I did my Caitlin Clark predictions before the year. Let's show what I said. This is back in May. This is what my exact predictions to a T on Caitlin Clark. 19.1 points, 8.5 rebounds. I was way off on her 8.5 assists rather, 2.8 rebounds. I was way off on that. Shooting 44% from the field, 38% from three-point range. Folks, I was literally 0.1 away from nailing her points per game and assists per game. I said 19.1. Sue me. She scored 19.2. I ever so slightly underestimated Caitlin. I then slightly overestimated her. I had her getting 8.5 assists. She ends up getting 8.4. I was that close on picking the points and assists for Caitlin. She vastly almost doubled, actually did double what I expected for her in terms of rebounds. I had her getting 2.8. She ended up getting 5.7. She shot 41% for the field. I had her at 44. She shot 34 from three. I had 38. I overestimated again what she would shoot from 3-point range, but no other way around it. Caitlin Clark had the greatest rookie season in the WNBA this year. And I did see this. The Fever, who are in the playoffs, by the way, is the 6th seed in the WNBA playoffs. They're playing the Connecticut Sun, who they did have struggles with. That was actually who Caitlin played her first game against this season. Who knows, it may be the last game she plays as well, because Connecticut's got an excellent team. What I think is remarkable is over the course of the year, not just the impact that Caitlin Clark had in the WNBA, from a viewership standpoint and a great rookie season, she's absolutely unequivocally, undeniably one of the 12 best players, one of 10 best players, really, in the WNBA. Look what Caitlin Clark just did this season. And shout out to Al for putting together this mammoth of a graphic. League leader in assist point per game. League leader in three-pointers. She was first in points per game for a rookie. Field goal makes by a rookie. Assists per game by a rookie. Steals per game by a rookie. She was third in rebounds per game by a rookie. Fourth in blocks per game. Blocks per game. She's a guard by a rookie. First rookie with a triple-double in the history of the WNBA. Broke the single-season assist record. Broke the single-game assist record. Most points by a rookie ever. Most assists by a rookie ever. Most three-pointers by a rookie ever. I thought Caitlin would come into the WNBA, struggle a little bit. Now, she struggled far more than I thought she would out the gates, dealing with the physicality, dealing with the fact that she, as well as the other rookies in the WNBA, to be fair, got and get, in general, no break after March Madness. In between that, the draft, and when the season starts, it's basically a month of I say in the biggest air quotes ever, off season. I mean, you got the draft, you got training camp, you got preseason. You don't get much of a rest. So I actually, Caitlin came underneath the bar that I had for her to start the season, but she exceeded what I thought she would do late in the year. I thought Caitlin would slowly, progressively get better. But it goes back to the point that I said about Caitlin when she didn't make the Olympic team. I said, okay, I don't think she's one of the 12 best players in the WNBA, but even if she is, I don't think that that going to the Olympics will be good for her in terms of her health, in terms of her development. She needs more than anything a break. Now, I was wrong in the fact that I didn't think she was one of the 12 best players in the WNBA, but to defend myself in a certain regard, I don't think I necessarily view her that way had she not gone crazy in the second half of the season. Many of her numbers here are boosted by the fact that she essentially averaged about 20 points per game, almost double-digit assists, was unbelievable shooting percentage from the field, from three-point range, from the free throw line, all went up in the second half of the season for Caitlin Clark. So listen, I don't know if Indiana's going to beat Connecticut. I'm probably going to go with Connecticut. That's the best 5 series, by the way. I'm probably going to go with the Suns. I think they're the more talented team, the deeper team. But listen, we're in a spot right now with the Indiana Fever, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, by the way, who led the Fever in scoring, had an excellent season. If maybe they're able to attract a free agent or two, maybe trade for somebody. This is what I said when folks were like, oh, it's a disgrace to have her off the Olympic team, that women's basketball missed this moment in time to capitalize. And I said, you're underestimating Caitlin Clark. You're underestimating the hold that she is going to have on our attention for years to come. It's Tiger Woods all over again. The golf viewership exploded with this young superstar athlete in Tiger Woods. The same thing with Caitlin Clark, a sport that, I support the WNBA even on the show on multiple occasions, but it was not a nationally viewed sport. I didn't talk about the WNBA nearly as much as I talked about it up until during the season, 2024. That's only going to improve in the future. You mean to tell me, as Caitlin, who's a rookie, by the way, and had arguably the greatest rookie season in the history of the league, I'd probably go Candace Parker, go Vols, because she won league MVP in her first year, and Asia Wilson had averaged 20 as a rookie. So probably Candace Parker, Asia Wilson, Caitlin Clark as the 3 best rookie seasons in the 30-year history of the WNBA. But all that said, she's a rookie. You think she's not going to get better? You think that the way she was absolutely torching those girls at Iowa, averaging 30 points per game, putting up some 40 burgers, you don't think she's going to do that in the WNBA as time goes on? You don't think that she's going to continue to be marketed as the face of the WNBA? Again, Asia Wilson's by far the best player in the league today. She's unbelievable. Just scored 1,000 points. That's never been done by a WNBA player ever in a 40-game season, mind you. Is the fact that as this player gets better, and again, I've said it multiple times, and I may put together a montage in mid-February when this happens, because it's going to happen. A Caitlin Clark, Steph Curry, 3-point shootout in the All-Star game in San Francisco at Golden State this February. It's going to happen. assuming Caitlin Clark accepts that invitation from Adam Silver. But it will be unbelievable marketing for the WNBA, unbelievable marketing for Caitlin. And I mean, listen, Sabrina almost beat Steph. Sabrina Ionescu almost beat Steph Curry. It is a truly special season that she just had. And listen, I think we are on the precipice. Listen, if she leads Indiana to a series win over Connecticut, it will be one of the greatest accomplishments that I've seen by a rookie in sports. And by the way, should they win that series, they would in all likelihood play the Minnesota Lynx, who've had an unbelievable regular season. This says Caitlin met my expectations. If we're just looking at the total averages of the season, like points per game and assists per game, I was basically dead on, like almost to a T on what she do scoring and passing the basketball. She exceeded what I thought in rebounds and field goal percentage. Not quite what I thought, but still, second half of the season, I didn't think she'd be this good at the end of her season or her rookie season. After scoring 34 points and taking over games against veteran players in this league. That's one thing I push back against, folks, is the idea that, that the women's basketball missed their opportunity. Caitlin's only getting better. You think the popularity is going to go down as Caitlin gets better? When she gets to a similar sense of play that we saw relative to her competition, of course, to what we saw from her at Iowa, you see the ratings for those games? Those Iowa LSU, those Iowa and UConn, Iowa, South Carolina, you see the ratings for those games? I'm not saying you'll see the same ratings of the WNBA because, unfortunately, the end of their season, the end of their season runs smack dab into NFL. Like, that's the downside for women's basketball, for the WNBA in particular. But I'm telling you, this is not a shooting star. This isn't here at Aegon tomorrow. This player, this athlete is going to be here for some time. And listen, as I've always said, respect to Angel Reese. She had, for a rookie, a tremendous season. Again, folks talk about the shooting percentage. She's got to improve finishing inside. There's no question about it. But relative to what my expectations for Angel Reese's rookie, she exceeded them. Freaking broke the single season record for rebounds. Kudos to her. It's Caitlin for rookie of the year, and it's not even remotely close. Okay, I mean, show that one more time. I mean, that's the, sorry for the podcast audience. I read it about 3, 4, 5 minutes ago. Check back for that. But for the YouTube and Facebook audience, that's what Caitlin Clark did as a rookie. Barely into her 20s. But she's going to be here for a while. So kudos to Caitlin. By the way, WNBA playoffs begin on Sunday. Fever play the Suns. Not the Suns. That's the Phoenix Suns. The Connecticut Sun at 3 p.m. Eastern on ABC. You also got Dream Liberty, 8 seed versus 1 seed. Mercury versus Lynx. That's 7 seed versus 2 seed. That could be Taurasi's last run, so we definitely want to tune in for that. And obviously the Seattle Storm against the back-to-back defending champion Las Vegas Aces. That game tips off at 10 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. So WNBA playoffs is upon us. And like I saw this, that the ticket prices for game 1 for Fever Sun are more expensive. I saw this on ESPN. More expensive than the tickets for the 2023 WNBA Finals combined, the single game tickets. So, again, listen, we know the impact that this player has in the league. Pretty remarkable. So, shout out to Caitlin Clark. All right. After the break, we'll do some NFL predictions, Bryson Bleak bet upset of the week, and my favorite segment, If I Were a Bettin Man, Brack, after the break on Carving It Up Live. Top of the next hour, Carving It Up Live. We've got NFL predictions. This has been a fun show. Again, shout out to Tommy Christopher. You can check out his stuff on Gang Green Nation, on SB Nation. He writes some great stuff on that website. Check his stuff out there. Great guest. Enjoyed talking about the Jets with him. Caitlin Clark, Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Rodgers doing his thing. Again, I'm just going to say it on the air because you know what? Screw it. I'm already in our little Grid Network group chat getting some pushback saying, some people are in there saying like, oh, I didn't keep that same energy for the Jets after they beat the Patriots. Oh, listen. Well, let me just say it on the outset. Aaron Rodgers is awesome. Has had an awesome career and is an awesome player historically. Was awesome last night. Do I expect that with the play calling, with the lack of depth at receiver, with tougher opponents in the future to continue? Of course I don't. So my outlook of the Jets has not shifted in the slightest for the season. I still think it's a 7-win team, 8 wins at best. I get why Jets fans are optimistic. God bless them. Jets fans, and Alfred, my man Alfred's a Jets fan. My man John's a Jets fan. I love both of them dearly. My guy Barry, who I love dearly as well, is also a closet Jets fan. He won't tell you, but he's a closet Jets fan. They don't get days like this where everybody's fawning over the New York Jets. So let them have it. I am not going to be here to be the party pooper. That said, 7-10 on deck. All right, let's move on. NFL predictions for week 3. Listen, last week was, I think for most people, a down week in terms of gambling, betting, predicting, whatever the case may be. It was not exactly what you would hope for. And again, week 1 is the hardest week to gamble in the NFL. Week 2 is even more difficult because the lines are so over or under inflated, given what we saw in week 1. Last week, can we show my win-loss record? Okay, so yeah, last week right there, 8-8, and then 7-9 against the spread. Minnesota kind of saved me right there from being really disastrous against the spread. But nonetheless, not a great week for me. Hoping to bounce back. Here's my overall win-loss record. This doesn't include last night, by the way, where I stupidly picked the Patriots. My bad on that one. I thought they'd, control the football. I just forgot that the Patriots have literally no talent. That's my bad. 20-12 in terms of win-loss record this season before last night, and against the spread, only 15-16. That Seahawks and Broncos game back in week 1 was a push. Let's get to predictions. Here we go. Let's do it. We'll start Houston Texans, Minnesota Vikings. So, listen, you're going to see throughout the course of a lot of these games, it's September 20th today, and we've already got, you'll see with another game later down the road, a ton of injuries in the NFL this season. So right now you're looking at the Houston Texans, Minnesota Vikings. Texans on the road are a 2-point favorite. These are 2-0 teams. So here's the thing with Houston is I feel like they haven't put together the complete game that I've been waiting to see. Now we're 2 games in, so you have to imagine that it's coming. But the bad news for the Texans is their best 2 running backs, both out. Joe Mixon, Dameon Pierce, gone. So in is Cam Akers. We know he has an injury history. He won a Super Bowl with the Rams a few years ago. He's with the Texans now. C.J. Stroud was excellent in week 1 against the Indianapolis Colts. In week 2, solid. Again, didn't turn the football over. Solid against what I think is an excellent Chicago Bears defense. Nico Collins was great. Stephon Diggs is kind of finding his way in this Buffalo Bills offensive lineup. Again, defensively, they were, blitz Caleb Williams like crazy. Again, I think most of that was more in Chicago's offensive line than on Houston just having a great defensive game plan. In this spot, listen, I wanted to take Minnesota +2 so bad. I can't. TJ Hawkinson's out. Jordan Addison is out. Dallas Turner, who I picked to be my defensive rookie of the year, is out. Justin Jefferson was limited in practice throughout the week. In respect to Sam Darnold, Sam Darnold, this is the best coaching he's ever gotten in his entire NFL career with Kevin O'Connell, who I think is brilliant. But there's just too many missing pieces for this Minnesota Vikings offense for me to believe in them as a team that could beat, and defense, by the way, for this me to believe in this team that'll beat the Texans. Give me Houston in a close one nonetheless, but 24-20 over the Minnesota Vikings. Texans will get to 3-0, and they will beat Minnesota by a final score of 24-20. It is now time for my favorite segment that I do every week, and I've gotten off to a rough start, but I'll bounce back. It's time for
Bettin Man.
Hi, we're a Bettin Man. I am looking at, and folks are not touching this game. I love it. Philadelphia Eagles, New Orleans Saints from New Orleans, Louisiana. Saints are favored -2.5. So this is a game that is really divisive in betting communities because this line before Monday Night Football, before the Philadelphia Eagles, which I almost lost my voice talking about it on Wednesday, was heavily favored, given that, or I should say heavily favored, but favored in New Orleans, despite the fact that the Saints scored 47 against the Panthers, so you got to factor that in. But also they go to Dallas, score 44 points and score a touchdown on their first 6 drives. Despite that, Sunday night, you could get Saints +3. You could get Philly, if you want to take them, to cover -3. Since then, it's been a 5.5 point swing. It's been pretty unbelievable to watch, given what Philadelphia did at the end of their game. Now, someone who would want to bet the Philadelphia Eagles could say, well, hang on a second. They outplayed Atlanta throughout. Their defense, while incredibly shaky, still did a solid job. They got that 4th down stop on a talented Falcons offense. And then offensively, Jalen, until the final 30 seconds, didn't make any mistakes. Saquon still looks good in this lineup prior to that drop. All of those things. Here's the issue. There's no A.J. Brown. And Jalen Hurts' numbers, if you look at them statistically, he's essentially Justin Fields. My guy, Pittsburgh, but I got to keep it real. Jalen Hurts is Justin Fields without A.J. Brown. He's a different player. Keep in mind that this New Orleans Saints defense had no Marshawn Lattimore last week against C.D. freaking Lamb, and he never really got off. Now, C.D. hurt his ankle in that game. He's a little bit limited, so you understand that. But still, Marshawn Lattimore is a premier corner in the National Football League. Mario Davis, by the way, awesome linebacker. I think he's going to have a big, big impact on this football game. If I were a bet man, take the Saints -2.5. I love this right here in this spot. I hate Philadelphia's defense. I like what I get from the Saints offensively. Clint Kubiak has changed completely this Saints offense. Derek Carr has done a great job playing within it. And Alvin Kamara, go balls, has been unbelievable. Give me the Saints -2.5. They win this game 31-20. By the way, 31 for the Saints is significantly less than what's normally the case, for them scoring well over 40 in their first 2 games. Give me, if I were a bet man, take the New Orleans Saints -2.5, and they beat Philadelphia 31-20. I thought about including this one if I were a bet man. I decided against it. Denver Broncos, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bucks are favored -6.5. So you got 0-2 versus 2-0. Here's what I'm looking at. Is the fact that the first 2 games of the season, Bo Nix, who again, I was very skeptical about him coming out of this year's draft. Given the fact that he gets Sean Payton, the quarterback whisperer, given the fact that I think over the course of the season, he's going to progressively get better and better. I really like Cortland Sutton. I've always been a Cortland Sutton guy. They play 2 really tough defenses. Seattle, coached by Mike McDonald. Are you kidding me? In Seattle, it's a mismatch against a poor rookie. It's a wonder that the Broncos were even able to force the push. And then last week, now I picked Denver to cover. Dead wrong on this one. They're facing the elite Pittsburgh Steelers defense. The Steelers secondary absolutely ate Bo Nix alive. Tampa Bay is dealing with a ton of injuries on the defensive side of the ball. Vita Vea is out. It's something that did not get talked about enough. And I did have Tampa Bay at number 10 on Bryson's best 10 on Wednesday. It was more because of their offense. Again, defensively, they show some signs of life from time to time. We know the defensive identity the Bucs have had throughout their history. Here's the problem. Not only injuries, the fact that the Detroit Lions, I believe, were able to get in the red zone 7 times. Only scored a touchdown 1 time. For Detroit, we know they're a loaded offense relative to Tampa, certainly. But they were able to move the football. They just couldn't cash it at the end. I think Bo Nix is going to do a good job moving the Broncos down the field. I could see this being a very close game at the end, but talent advantage. Baker's been playing really well. Give me the Buccaneers to win this one 23-20 over the Broncos, but I would take the Broncos and the points +6.5. I get it. Rookie quarterback starting on the road. I just don't trust Tampa Bay's defense long-term over the course of the season. Give me the Buccaneers. How about this? Tampa Bay starting 3-0 in the season. Nonetheless, 6.5 is way too many for the Bucs in this spot. Broncos +6.5, but Tampa Bay wins outright 23-20 over the Denver Broncos. This next game, I'll be attending the Green Bay Packers and the Tennessee Titans. A lot of questions going into this matchup. Titans are favored -3. I expect this line to move a lot over the course of the next 48 hours, or really 36 hours, I guess, if you're doing the math, is because of the fact that we don't know if Jordan Love's going to play. Jordan Love is... We obviously know he got hurt at the end of that game. Second to last play of the game, which is terrible luck for the poor kid against the Philadelphia Eagles in Brazil on that terrible turf field on that hit by, I forget who it was, kid who played at Georgia, Carter. Gets hit in his legs, and he's projected to miss like 4 to 6 weeks or something. Looks like he may come back in 2. He's been practicing all week in pads. He's got a knee brace on. Whether he'll play or not, TBD. I still like Green Bay in this spot. I like Green Bay the points. I like Green Bay to win because of the simple fact that Will Levis, and I was not high on Levis at all before 2023 draft. I didn't think he'd fall as low as he did in the second round. But there is listen, I've railed on Aaron Rodgers for my, at times, perceived narcissism that he has shown, I think, in many, many instances in terms of his leadership. He's got nothing on Will Levis. Teams that meted with him, the Indianapolis Colts in particular, could not stand him in the interviews that he did. Brian Callahan. And we know Brian Callahan's a young coach. Will Levis is a young quarterback. You think a guy who are relatively close, if we're talking about a quarterback-coach relationship, generationally, that there'd be a heightened sense of, hey, it's a young player. I'm going to build his confidence. I'm not going to tear him down. Brian Callahan embarrassed Will Levis after Will Levis embarrassed himself with just mind-boggling turnovers against the Bears, and particularly last week against the New York Jets defense. Will Levis, in many senses, in a large sense, cost the Titans that game against the Jets. This could be the Malik Willis revenge game. Obviously, Malik Willis did next to nothing as the quarterback of the Titans when he did get his opportunities. I'm going Green Bay. That running game, albeit it was against the Colts. The Colts have a historically bad rush defense. I get that. Tennessee's got an excellent defense. Justin Simmons. They got some ballers on that side of the ball. I think Will Levis is going to make a couple of just what the F are you doing mistakes. And for that reason, whether Jordan Love plays or not, certainly if he plays, I feel more confident. Give me the Packers +3 and to win this game outright by a final score of 20-16 over the Tennessee Titans. I have a hunch. I'd say I'm 60-40 on whether Love is playing. Again, Matt LaFleur, he's a smart coach. He's not going to put him in position where he has to, do a ton of things in terms of the offense. Josh Jacobs can be a Josh Jacobs game, especially with some of the injuries the Packers have in terms of running backs. Give me Green Bay 20-16 over the Tennessee Titans. It is now time for my upset of the week. It's a minor one, but it's an upset. Give me the New York Giants over the Cleveland Browns, 19-17. Take the Giants +6.5 and to win this puppy outright, 19-17 in a barn burner in Cleveland. Here's why. So the Giants, move the ball really, really well against Washington. Now, you might say, well, Washington's defense is nowhere near Cleveland. We don't know that. Myles Garrett is iffy on whether he's going to play. My guess is Myles Garrett does play. The thing for the Cleveland Browns is this. So last week against Jacksonville, right? Deshaun Watson scores a touchdown. That first drive, Cleveland was good. It's, again, as we talk about all the time, particularly with the Jets, first 15 plays, scripted plays. What do? Well, Cleveland looked pretty good because they have a great coach in Kevin Stefanski. And it was, let's just survive from here. After that first drive, the last basically 50-plus minutes of that game, 3 field goals and a safety. This Browns offense with Deshaun Watson is still bad. Deshaun Watson is a bad quarterback in every sense of the word. David Njoku out for this game for Cleveland. And you mean to tell me I can get the Giants +6.5, given the fact that Daniel Jones, for his flaws, the Giants could have very easily won in Washington and scored 3 touchdowns. The Giants moved the football. Malik Neighbors dropped obviously a big 4th down pass. If he catches that, New York probably wins the game. So Neighbors, who seemed like a really mature kid, was hard on himself, ready to get back out there, ready to do some things. Listen, I saw this line at 6.5 for Cleveland. If I had a bigger upset, this would have made if I were a bet man. I feel great about this. Give me the Giants in Cleveland to beat the Browns. Again, y'all know I don't. No, I think the Giants are very good. I don't buy the Cleveland Browns in the slightest, mostly because I don't buy Deshaun Watson. The Giants win this game, take them +6.5, and to win this thing outright. Neither team breaks 20. Doesn't matter. New York wins this one, 19-17 over the Cleveland Browns. This next one's a weird one. Admittedly, I love my Pittsburgh Steelers. We're at home. Los Angeles Chargers, a battle of 2 undefeated teams, 2-2-0 teams. Pittsburgh, 24 hours ago, was favored -1.5. They are now favored -3. That tells me, in all likelihood, Justin Herbert's not going to play this game. Now, Justin Herbert has been talking to the media. He's ready to go. He wants to play this week. All of that's great. And y'all know one thing about Justin Herbert. Absolutely, unequivocally, one of the 10 best quarterbacks on the planet. Problem is, I believe he sprained his ankle against Carolina last week. And they've gone on the road again. A limited Herbert will hurt the Chargers. Again, a limited Herbert is better than is Easton Stick the backup for the Chargers? I think he is. If Easton Stick is in that lineup, that bodes really well for a Pittsburgh team. But by the way, I was not terribly high on in this spot. I got to be objective about my team. In this spot against the Chargers team that y'all know I love. I think they're the 3rd best team in football, and I think they're going to the AFC title game this season. But this feels like to me Jim Harbaugh, smart, veteran coach. We got the Kansas City defense. We have got to have Justin Herbert at 100%. This is a huge divisional game for us. If we lose to Pittsburgh, we can beat Kansas City next week, and boom, we're first in the division once again. Like that, this is not it's week 3, folks. They're 2-0. This is not a do-or-die game by any means for the Los Angeles Chargers. I think T.J. Watt is going to be somewhat neutralized because of the fact that he's going against, I think, the best tackle duo in football. Joe Alt, Rashawn Slater. Lad McConkey, Quentin Johnston, they will be neutralized by this Pittsburgh Steelers defense. This is going to be very much like last week, where with a limited quarterback, and I think Easton Stick is going to start at quarterback. Obviously, certainly, well, if Justin Herbert doesn't play, which I don't think he will. This is going to be a secondary game for Pittsburgh. Minka Fitzpatrick, Patrick Queen makes some big plays this game. And again, Justin Fields, no turnovers. And he would have 100 extra yards. The Steelers will score. They only scored 13 last week, and people are like, the Steelers offense. We would have scored 27 if not for some really dumb penalties committed on our part on a touchdown and then a deep ball to one George Pickens. This kid is special. This kid's going to make an impact in this game. With that all said, give me my Pittsburgh Steelers to win this puppy, cover the 3 points, and win it 21-16. I am mostly saying this under the assumption that Justin Herbert doesn't play. Folks, look at this. The Steelers, my Pittsburgh Steelers, will be 3-0, which is critical for Pittsburgh because, as we all know, I remember talking about in May, that back half of the schedule is hell for Pittsburgh. A ton of divisional games, a ton of games against great quarterbacks, great coaches. Pittsburgh's got to take care, I shouldn't say take care of the Chargers like they're a bad team. They're an excellent team. I just don't think they'll have their quarterback. A lot of sort of a look ahead for the Chargers to next week against the Chiefs. Mike Tomlin at home, season opener, or home opener rather, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like my team in this spot, 21-16 over the LA Chargers. Moving on to our next game and our second edition of my favorite segment every week.
Bettin Man.
Tyra, Bettin Man. I'm looking at Chicago Bears, Indianapolis Colts from Indy. Here's what I'm looking at here. Indianapolis. My bad. In this game, favored by a point. So this is, even in Indianapolis, darn near a coin flip, darn near a pick. Here's what we know about the Colts. They can be an explosive offense. And then they got some playmakers on the outside. Jonathan Taylor, Anthony Richardson. I've compared him to a 250 hitter who hits 45 to 50 jacks and is one of the league leaders in strikeouts. Because that's what he is. Anthony Richardson, for as talented, as naturally gifted, just in terms of arm strength and athleticism that he is, boy, he misses layups. I mean, I was watching that game against Green Bay last week at Lambeau. He was missing some throws, and I've seen over half the league's backup. It's inaccuracy was a concern of his coming out of Florida. Teams up obviously with Shane Steichen, who I think is a brilliant coach. And this is really a do-or-die game for the Colts, given the division they're in, given the fact you want to start 0-3 with 2 home losses. Here's what I'm looking at, though. Not only is Anthony Richardson inaccurate, but if you look at the other side of the ball, Indy's defense is historically bad against the run. They gave up darn near 300 yards against the Packers rushing offense last week with no Jordan Love. It's Malik Willis. You're playing for the run. The Packers are going to run it over 50 times, and you still couldn't stop them to save your life. Problem, though, is the Bears have gotten no running game of their own going with DeAndre Swift and others. Some of that's their offensive line. Some of that's the over-reliance on the pass. Whatever that is, Keenan Allen is out. This, to me, feels like for Chicago. We are going – Shane Waldron, this is big for him. We have got to establish an identity. Our offensive line is struggling. Our quarterback hasn't – our first overall pick quarterback, generational talent, hasn't quite gotten it going yet. This could be a DeAndre Swift game. This could be a game where Caleb Williams works out of the play action. It's set up in third down in a short situation. What I stupidly thought that the Patriots-Jets game was going to be kind of a time of possession war in favor of New England. In fact, it was in favor of the Jets, as it turned out. I think that's what it's going to be for the Chicago Bears. I love them in this spot. Again, even if they were favored to win this football game, I would certainly take them. Give me the Bears +1 to win this. To win this one, 26-22 over the Indianapolis Colts. The reason, as much as I liked Indianapolis's talent, their upside, I simply did not trust their defense coming into the season. I certainly feel that way right now. Give me Chicago +1. If I were a bet man, take the Bears rather +1, and obviously to win this one outright, of course, 26-22 over the Indianapolis Colts. Moving on to our next game. So this is weird. Carolina Panthers and Las Vegas Raiders. So Andy Dalton's going to start for Carolina. We know that. Bryce Young benched after 2 games. Y'all heard my rant on that on Carving Up the Context on Wednesday. Meanwhile, the Raiders, they lose week 1 to the Chargers. They're not as talented as the Chargers. We get that. They go into Baltimore, down by double digits, come back against Lamar Jackson, against the Ravens, and win that game. Gardner Minshew, excellent. Brock Bowers, balling. Devontae Adams with a toe drag swag, in the words of Nate Burleson, catch to put them in position to come back and win that game. Raiders defense, Max Crosby doing his thing. This was almost, it really was. This was almost the Bryson's Bleak bet game. I decided for another Bryson's Bleak bet because I feel worse about another game than this one. But you're asking me to have a good feel for a game quarterbacked by the king, recently at least, in the last 10 years, of the low-end starter, high-end backup category. Mr. Redhead himself, the Red Ryder BB gun, at least as J.J. Watt told him, Andy Dalton. Andy's a good guy, by the way, so that ain't a personal shot. I like Andy, but he's a low-end starter, or was a low-end starter, high-end backup. That's Gardner Minshew now. If Gardner Minshew's your starter, you're not going very far. But if he's your backup, hey, if your starter goes down for a few games, you're in good shape. It's the low-end starter, high-end backup off. I think Andy certainly today is a better quarterback than Bryce Young. He's obviously much taller than Bryce Young, so that's going to help him. The Raiders defense is really good. This is going to be a low-scoring affair. I think folks are a little too high on the Raiders. Listen, I know Carolina's awful. I get it. I get Carolina's awful. But 6 points. Give me Carolina +6 and hesitantly Panthers to win, I guess, 16-14. This does sound like Bryson's Bleak bet. I get that, but I decided for another game down the road. But give me the Panthers 16-14 over the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't feel the greatest about this. I'd be lying to you if I said I was going to be absolutely locked in on this game. I will be locked into this game for the simple fact that it is the final edition of my favorite segment every week.
You're a betting man.
Fire a bet man. This one is crazy, man. There's certain lines, and ironically, it involves a team that I'm about to mention that was in a similar game like this a year ago. Sometimes there are lines, and you're like, how the heck can I get this? Like this is gift wrap to me as a better if I were a bet man. Miami Dolphins, Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks at home over a Dolphins team who just got the doors blown off them at home against the Bills with no Tua and no Raheem Mostert. Seattle's a 4.5-point favorite at home. That, to me, is lunacy. Geno Smith has been playing exceptionally well over the course of the first 2 games. Obviously, we know Seattle's offensive receiving core as good as there is with Metcalf, Lockett, and Smith and Jigba. Kenneth Walker has been running the football very effectively. I loved him out of college. I love what he's doing right now with the Seattle Seahawks when he's healthy. Very effective player. And Mike McDonald, listen, the guy was a defensive maestro as the DC of the Baltimore Ravens. The best defense in the NFL last season, he coached that. Well, now he's in Seattle. A Seahawks defense that really struggled in spots a year ago, all of a sudden is one of the best in the NFL this season. I think in a spot, Skylar Thompson, you're telling me I get Seattle -4.5 against Skylar Thompson? Yes, Tyreek Hill and Waddle, I get that. Who's going to get to the football? Tua's got his limitations, folks, and I would probably pick Seattle even if Tua was healthy. But the Seahawks -4.5, if I were a bet man, I am smashing this, folks. Remember last year when the Dolphins played the Kansas City Chiefs in the wild card game? Remember this? The freezing cold game? Well, the coldest games in NFL history. And the Chiefs were like 4.5, I think they're exactly this, 4.5-point favorites. I'm like, Vegas is giving you money here. Take Kansas City and then some. That's how I feel in this situation. Give me the Seattle Seahawks by a final score of 28-20 over the Dolphins. I don't trust Miami's defense. Tyreek will probably break one down the field just to make it somewhat respectable, but I'll still take the Seahawks in this spot. If I were a bet man, take the Seahawks -4.5 and to win this game outright by a final score of 28-20 over the Miami Dolphins. This is not Bryson's Bleak bet. This is not upset of the week. This is not if I were a bet man. This next game, I just want to sit back and watch because it is one of the more fascinating early season games that I can remember. The Baltimore Ravens, the Dallas Cowboys from Jerry World, Baltimore on the road, despite being 0-2, favored by a point. So here's what I'm looking at. And this is what makes it so fascinating for two reasons. Number one, both teams are desperate for different reasons. Baltimore's 0-2. Sure, they lose to Kansas City by a toenail. They almost beat the defending champions. Okay, no harm, no foul. They just blew a double-digit lead at home to the Raiders and Gardner Minshew. That's not a very good sign at all. The Cowboys, though, blow out Cleveland. Well, Cleveland's got a terrible quarterback. What do you expect? And then they get housed at home by the New Orleans Saints. The fact that the Cowboys, in between week 2, 2020, and week 17 of 2023, did not lose a home game. And yet in their last two, I did a segment on this on Monday's show, eerily similar losses to the Packers in the playoffs and to the Saints in Jerry World. The fact that it was the Saints ran the ball down the Cowboys' throat just like the Packers. 7.7 yards per play, all of that. Scoring over 40, the whole bit. Dallas, again, I always say this. Any team that has a coach worth their salt, and McCarthy has his limitations. I don't trust him in terms of clock management. He doesn't use analytics as much as some of the other great coaches do. He's got his limitations, but he's a good coach. He's around, I'd say, like the 13th or 14th best coach in the league. He's not as bad as some folks think, and he has few defenders, but those that do exist, not as great as those say he is. That's the number one reason that this game is fascinating, because the desperation of both these teams. If Baltimore starts 0-3, their goose is cooked. They're done. I talked about before the year, if you lose to a team in week 1 that beat you in the playoffs, you almost always miss the playoffs. I said that. I rang that bell for 4 months. There's a chance that puppy may be coming to fruition because of the fact that they lost, of course, to the Chiefs. Here's the second reason this game is fascinating. The Ravens are an excellent running team. The Cowboys do not stop the run whatsoever. On the other side of the coin, the Ravens have literally, statistically, the worst pass defense in football. The other team, knock on wood, assuming one of them is healthy, ready for this game, has Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, one of the 3 best quarterback wide receiver combos in football. So this is strength on weakness versus strength on weakness. This puppy could be high scoring. I'm going to keep it reasonable. I'm going to keep it in the 20s. I think this is a game where Baltimore's going to come out the gates, wanting to punch Dallas in the mouth, just like the New Orleans Saints did. And we know Baltimore, of course, has a history of this. But again, assuming CeeDee Lamb's healthy, knock on wood, I think this is the game where Dak and CeeDee get right. CeeDee and Dak have been quite on the same page. A lot of that's because of CeeDee's holdouts, because of the contract stuff, wanted to get his deal, deserved his deal, got everything that he deserved and earned from Jerry Jones. This will be the Dak Prescott CeeDee Lamb game. I expect this to be a shootout for different reasons. Baltimore's going to try and take time possession. There'll be some turnovers on both sides. I think it will be the game of Sunday. But in the end, I cannot wait to belt this out on Monday. But I'll save it for now and just speak it. Rain, Dakota, Prescott, and CeeDee Lamb will lead Dallas to victory on a game-winning field goal by one of the best kickers of the game, Brandon Aubrey. Dallas wins this one. Take the Cowboys +1, 27-24. Assuming this happens, folks, Dallas feels really good about themselves. They got a short week against the terrible Giants in the Meadowlands. Feel good about themselves. As for the Ravens, folks, they are D-O-N-E done if they lose this football game, which I believe they will. Dallas 27, Baltimore 24, in one of the most fascinating early season games I can remember. Moving on now to, is this it? No, okay, that's the next game. Detroit Lions, Arizona Cardinals from Arizona. So the Lions on the road are 3-point favorites. So for Detroit, so they only score 16 against Tampa Bay. But as I talked about earlier with my Tampa Bay pick, look, Detroit still moved the football. Detroit still got into the red zone time and time again. They just couldn't cash in touchdowns. You would have turnovers. You would have turnover and downs. You'd settle for field goals. This has got to be an emphasis for Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson, who hasn't gotten off the greatest start ever. I love Ben Johnson. I have not loved his play calling over the first 2 games. The Arizona Cardinals, oh so close. Maybe a pass interference call away, potentially, of beating the Buffalo Bills on the road. But alas, lose that game. There's all the discussion. Oh, Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr. Are they on the same page? Are they on the same page? Well, they answered that question right off the bat with 2 bombs for touchdowns early in the game against the Los Angeles Rams. They win that game big time. Detroit favored by 3 in this game. I get, and I think this line is kind of perfect. I get the Cardinals have a lot of momentum. And again, after last week, and as I always say, or have said since the start of the season, Kyler and Marvin Harrison Jr. will make this a really fun team to watch. And I don't say that in a condescending tone. I genuinely think this will be one of the more fun teams, non-playoff teams, to watch the NFL. Arizona does not stop the run. And few teams run it better than the Detroit Lions. So for that reason, give me Detroit in this game. Big bounce back spot for Dan Campbell and the team that I have representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. My adoptive team, the Detroit Lions, win this one 27-20 over the Arizona Cardinals. Detroit, take them to cover the 3-point spread and win this puppy 27-20. Big bounce back win for Detroit, their first road game of the season at the Arizona Cardinals. It is now time for Bryson's Bleak Bet. It's the one game every week that I've absolutely zero confidence in predicting. But hey, you got to predict them all. Let's move on. This is a divisional matchup, NFC West. I don't feel good about this one at all. San Francisco 49ers, Los Angeles Rams. Now, what do we know about divisional game? It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. It matters a lot who the coach is. But it can be missing players, whatever the case may be, matchups, divisional games, unless it's unless one team literally has no talent at all, the Patriots. It's going to be a tight game or tight-ish. So this is, for week 3, as beat up a matchup as I've seen. So the Los Angeles Rams, okay? Cooper Kupp's out. Noteboom, left tackle, out. Puka Nacua, out. They're dealing with injuries all over the place. For the San Francisco 49ers, George Kittle's doubtful. Chris McCaffrey's out. And Deebo Samuel's out. This is a lot of guys. So this is going to be, and I said earlier this week, this is a big, big spot for Brock Purdy. I'm not expecting Brock to be anywhere near where he was a year ago in terms of passer rating and all that, leading in passer rating. What I'm expecting from Brock Purdy is this. Steady the ship. Smart decisions with the football. You still at least have Brandon Ayuk. You have Jordan Mason, who, again, running backs always work with Kyle Shanahan, West Coast offense. Juwan Jennings can play. I say that as a Vols fan. Love the kid. He almost won Super Bowl MVP. Had the Niners won. The weapons are still there. Nick Bosa will play. Charvarius Ward, we'll see if he plays. Looks like he'll be, in all likelihood, good to go. For the Rams, it's a home game in LA, but we know it's going to be a Niners home game. Unofficially a Niners home game because of a lot of the Bay Area fans traveling to Los Angeles. Niners, respect to Rams fans, but the Niners obviously have a much larger fan base. It's Kyle Shanahan. It's Sean McVay. There's no love lost between those two. Shanahan tends to own McVay. But the Rams just got embarrassed, humiliated by another division rival, the Arizona Cardinals. They're beat up. Nobody believes in them. They'll put up a dogfight. The talent advantage, obviously, at this point goes to the Niners. Big 2 to 3 week stretch for Brock Purdy, given the injuries to the Niners. This stretch will tell me more about Purdy than last season. Anything he did last season ever will. So I will take the Niners to win, but take the Rams and the points. It's a divisional game. Both teams are really beat up right now. Talent advantage goes to the 49ers. They'll win this game 24-19 over the Los Angeles Rams. 6.5, man. That's tough, man. Both these teams are beat up, and Matt Stafford and Sean McVay are still on the same field, same sideline together. Take the Rams plus 6.5, but the Niners to win this one outright by a final score of 24-19. And finally, Sunday Night Football, the back-to-back world champion Kansas City Chiefs on the road against an Atlanta Falcons team that just got a huge win, which we all dissected deeply against the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday night. Kansas City on the road is favored -3. So I went back and forth in this game for a number of reasons. Because for one, Kansas City, the loss of Isaiah Pacheco is huge. And they did sign Kareem Hunt, former Chief. He's on the practice squad. Andy Reid said today he will not be activated for this game. He's not quite ready to go. So we'll probably get Kareem Hunt back next week for that big Chargers game, but not for Sunday Night Football in Atlanta. So we have not seen, aside from occasional Xavier Worthy plays and one big Rashee Rice play last week against the Bengals, we just haven't seen quite the explosiveness, not to the level we didn't see it last year, not quite to what we thought we'd see this season with some of the improved pieces, in large part because Hollywood Brown hasn't played. For the Atlanta Falcons, Bijan Robinson's excellent. Kansas City has struggled to stop the run. That's got to be a little bit of a bugaboo of theirs. So I think that could favor the Falcons. But it's a short week for Atlanta. This is a spot where the Chiefs are like, hey, we just got a close win against the Ravens. We just got a close win against our rival, the Cincinnati Bengals. There's a lot of we kind of just survive. We need a get-right game. We need a game that we can really feel good about ourselves. Not that you don't for the first 2 games, but feel like, okay, we kind of controlled this game start to finish. Here's a big stat. And Mel Kiper may want to cover his ears because the guy evidently hates two high safeties. But here's this. Against 2 high safeties, the Kansas City Chiefs are top 5 in the NFL in terms of running that defense under Steve Spagnuolo. Kirk Cousins thus far, statistically in terms of EPA, the worst quarterback in football against 2 high safeties. You don't think Andy Reid knows that? You don't think Steve Spagnuolo knows that? Listen, Atlanta's got a great O-line. It's going to help them this matchup. I think Chris Jones, to a certain degree, won't have quite the impact that he normally has on a game-to-game basis. But for that reason, Kirk will struggle. I'm going to give him a couple of turnovers. Kansas City will do their thing. Travis Kelce, I want to steal a little bit more from him. I think we will. I'll take the Chiefs to cover -3 and to win this game by a final score of 24-16 over the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday Night Football. Chiefs 24, Falcons 16. I did see that Arthur Blank, the owner of the Falcons, is like inducting himself into the Falcons Hall of Fame, which is a bit odd, like you're inducting yourself. Whatever. Nonetheless, that's my picks. And with that, that is all the time we have for today's show. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Monday. What a show that'll be at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. And as always, be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. Helps the channel grow exponentially. We just passed 1.1K subscribers, so I appreciate everybody for tuning into the show, for engaging with the show, for taking the time out of their day to give this show a shot. Greatly appreciate it. The next goal is 5K. So if you have not subscribed, hey, just takes a couple seconds. Take a couple seconds out of your day, hit the big red subscribe button down there, and boom, you're part of the Carving It Up family. And it is a really supportive group with fantastic human beings who give this show a shot. I greatly appreciate everybody who has done so. If you have subscribed, please tell your friends about it, your family about it, everybody you know about Carving Up Live, except for your sleeping cat. Nealon, listen, my man, chill. You've been interject the last few days. Call him out. No, Nealon's the best. It's a day-to-day thing with him. He's interject some days. He's lying around it. That's cats for you. That's how it goes. Also, just as importantly, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcast. You can find us at the Grid Network, and be sure to check out my man Patrick Brown's excellent articles on the Grid Network website. You can Google Grid Network on your search engine. You can also find the link to our website and therefore to Patrick's articles on our Instagram. In the bio for our Instagram, it's the link. There's a link right there. You can click it, go to our website, and check out Patrick's stuff, and of course, check out other content creators in the audio space, in the YouTube space. Great content creators. Definitely check them out. All right. Great football weekend ahead. Some great college games. Vols beat Oklahoma 38-20 and solidify ourselves as one of the 4 best teams in college football, one of the best defenses, and of course, being Josh Heupel, one of the best offenses. Tennessee wins in Norman. And of course, my Pittsburgh Steelers 3-0, baby. We're going to beat the Chargers this weekend. And Dak Prescott, bounce back from my man Dak, and a bounce back game from my adopted team, the Detroit Lions. I feel really good about this for this weekend. Gonna be a great football weekend. I'll see you on Monday, 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific time. We got another special guest, a Cowboys writer, stopping in on the show, so stay tuned for that. We'll see you then. Be sure to stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health, and please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. It doesn't matter where you lean, right, left, center. This is an issue that affects every single one of us on a day-to-day basis in this country. And listen, no matter what anybody tries to tell you, gaslights you on, oh, it's not a problem, or oh, there's only one solution to solving this problem. Both are BS. Both are not true. It's a huge problem that deserves and requires a number of nuanced solutions to it, especially this being an election year. If anybody on either side of the aisle, particularly on one, shows any sense of nonchalant attitude towards this particular issue, either vote them out or vote against them, because we've got to protect our citizens in this beautiful country every single day. All right. Great football weekend ahead. I'll see you then. Stay safe out there on Monday, by the way, 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific. A lot of NFL, may even have some college football. Who knows? See you then. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. Tennessee Titans, Green Bay Packers should be a good one. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.